I'm going to find a way to cure MS. That
Yeah.
was my mission. I would do healing on my mum. I would be really drained the next day because I didn't know how to channel energy. I was in this bookshop in Florida, and this book about Reiki, it was called Essential Reiki, literally fell off the shelf. You know what? This is a bit of a chance to see if this actually works. So I started to really work with the crystals on healing this. They looked at my cervix and the precancerous cells had gone, and the endometriosis, they couldn't see any traces of it. My mission in life is really to connect people back into the earth, and through that connection to the earth, help them remember who they are. We have to start taking control of our health. We have to stop handing over. We've been programmed. Something's wrong. You go to the doctor, or you go to a nutritionist. You go to someone and you hand your problems over and you say, fix me.
Okay, welcome to the Drake Michigan podcast, and I've got the very, very lovely Juliette Bryant with us today. Juliette's a nutritional consultant. She's a superfood alchemist, and she's a mentor, and I'm sure she's got an incredible story to tell us. I'm made up because we have met before, Juliette. You were actually at the Crown, my old pub, on our last weekend, actually, and it was a Rise and Shine event, which we was delighted to host, and there were some great speakers, and you were there, and I managed to speak to you on a few occasions. It was a busy weekend, but I never really got the chance to dig deep and find out more about you and what you do, so this is my opportunity.
Amazing. So thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to see you again. It's marvelous. So as I mentioned just off camera, we tend to, in our podcast, we tend to dig a bit deep into sort of like from childhood, if you like. It's a life story. It's an opportunity to get your story out there. So let's hear it, Juliette. So where do we begin? Should we go to childhood or
yeah? I mean, really, when I was little, my journey kind of started very, very young. I was always very sensitive to energies, and I could always see ghosts. And I was a very open, kind of energetic child, and so I had a lot of time in my early years where my parents kept me very shielded because they knew how sensitive I was. So I never went to the Tower of London or places like that because they knew it would just freak me out because I'd probably see all the ghosts there. And when I had a lovely childhood. I've got 3 older half brothers and a younger full brother. And my parents were really loving and caring, beautiful people. My mum was American. My dad was English. And when I was 8, my mum got multiple sclerosis, and they both had the flu, both my parents, and they were in bed, proper flu, not like when people get a cold and they say they've got a flu.
Yeah.
And I heard shouting, and it was in the evening, and my mum's like, I need to go to the bathroom. I can't move. My dad's like, of course you can. Just get out of bed. It's fine. She's like, I cannot move. And so my dad carried my mum to the toilet. And I remember seeing that in my bedroom going, oh my God, what's going on? Why can't mum move? She was literally paralyzed.
Oh gosh.
And she went from she was a model, she was an interior designer, she was the most beautiful woman on the earth. I mean, I think everyone thinks that, but she was stunning, and was so active and busy and like vibrant. And boom, was struck down literally overnight. The flu had triggered multiple sclerosis, and within 6 months she was in a wheelchair and couldn't walk.
Oh my word.
And it was like she had chronic progressive MS. So it was a very quick descent into her being very, very unwell.
Yeah.
And so my dad had a very good job and a lot of money. You know, we had a very nice life. And when I was 11, there was a treatment that had come out in America called beta interferon pharmaceutical for multiple sclerosis, which was meant to be the thing.
Right.
Couldn't get it in this country. So my dad started to sell his company. We packed up, we all moved to America. Well, me and my mum moved. My brother and my dad came over later because they couldn't leave straight away because they could get the drug over there. So my mum saw the top neurologist in the world who happened to be in Florida. So that's where we moved. got put on this drug, which actually made her worse, um, which is the way. But
Yeah.
in this process, I was over there, 11 years old. My dad would come out once a month for a week because he was still working over here selling his company. He sold his company for millions and spent all of his money on trying to make my mum better. And they had such a beautiful, beautiful love affair. They were so in love. It was a really beautiful thing to see. But it was bloody hard for me having to look after my mum, starting school in America. We had a carer in the daytime when I was at school, but I'd have to get back, look after her, do a lot. I was her carer, really.
Yeah.
So it was hard, especially seeing her get even worse. So by the time I was probably 13, she couldn't really talk.
Oh,
You'd
no.
have to kind of, she would make sounds, but you'd have to try and decipher what she was saying. And we could do it, but other people couldn't. And so for someone who was fully active in their brain, but physically was, turning into a vegetable was really hard and hard to see growing up. So it was tough. And I swore when I was young, I was like, I'm going to become a doctor and I'm going to find a way to cure MS. That was my mission.
Yeah.
I then suffered migraines. So I was on every pharmaceutical in America that they could possibly give you for migraines. So I was in a really nice haze state through most of my high school years, which I loved. So it was interesting. I would do healing on my mum.
Right.
Which I didn't know what it was. I just put my hands on her throat and then she'd be able to speak for a day.
Wow.
And I would be really drained the next day because I didn't know how to channel energy. I was just calling. And it was really interesting. I was in this bookshop in Florida and walked into this spiritual bookshop. And this book about Reiki, it was called Essential Reiki, literally fell off the shelf.
Wow, amazing. I got goosebumps.
Yeah. And the woman in the shop said, "Can I see your hands for a minute?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "You've got the sign of a Reiki master." She said, "You need to learn healing." And I said, "I don't know what that is. Like, I said, it's weird though. This book just fell off the shelf."
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the past, before that, I'd done, it was a bit of my party trick. I'd hold someone's hand, I'd look at it and I'd read their palm, not knowing anything about it. I'd just see visions.
Yeah.
But I did it to one of my friends and I saw her mum die in it. And it really freaked me out. And 6 months later, her mum died.
Wow.
So I was like, I don't really want to mess with this stuff because I seem to be good at this. And I don't want to, like, what do you do when you see that someone's mum dies and you can't tell them that? I was like, what is the point of this? Like, why would you want to see that? So,
So was that common for you then at that time? Were you seeing a lot of that, or was that just like one story? Is it?
That was just one story. I mean, I was really good at reading people's palms, but it wasn't that I could tell anything about the lines. I would just literally see images pop up about their lives.
Wow.
And I didn't like it.
No.
I mean, I kind of liked it when I was in Florida and I was in a party and I'd had a few beers and I would pick up someone's hand. I'd be like, oh yeah, it was a bit of a kind of party trick.
Yeah.
But on a deeper level, it scared the shit out of me. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. So it was, my mum was very psychic as well. When I think I was 14, we were going out and my mum said, "I don't want you to go out." And I said, "I'm going out." And she's like, "I don't want you to go out." I said, "Why?" I said, "You're just restricting my freedom," as a typical teenager. And she's like, "No, I don't want you to go out." Anyway, I was like, "Whatever, I'm going out." So my friend came to pick me up. She came in. My mum said, "Please drive very carefully." And he's like, "Yeah, of course." Anyway, we get in a car accident and I get home and mum said, "You were hit in the car by a grey car at 9:11 at this road." And I was like, "How do you know? Did the police tell you?" She said, "No, I saw it. That's why I didn't want you going out."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh my God, wow. Freaky." So amazing. There's that kind of energy, that psychicness that runs in the family. But so this lady, anyway, back to the bookshop. This lady taught me Reiki and she did it for free. And that was really the beginning of me kind of stepping into my healing journey. Obviously, my healing journey started when I was younger because I was just doing it anyway.
Yes.
But that was the kind of activation, and I was always into crystals, and but that really kind of activated me to a whole kind of new level.
Yeah.
But when I think I was 15, I was really depressed. I couldn't cope with what was going on at home. It was just all too much. So I tried to kill myself. And I tried a few times and it didn't work because something would stop me. Something would kind of get in the way because that I wasn't meant to.
Yeah.
But finally I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I need to go to hospital. So I was seeing a counsellor at the time for my headaches, and I said, I need support. I can't do this. So I signed myself into a mental hospital in Florida, and it was the best thing I ever did because I just had a break from like life, from all the stress of what was happening in my life.
Yes.
And they gave me tools to really help me cope. Yes, they put me on antidepressants, which I took for 6 months and were really useful at that point.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan now of them, but
No.
now I've got other skills and tools, but I didn't have those then.
Yeah, but they're quick to put that on people anyway, aren't they? You know, it's like sweets, isn't it? Really, you know, we'll just give you
Oh,
that. But
totally.
of course, it will help, but it's never going to fix the problem, is it? But it will certainly dull the pain.
Exactly. And at that time, I was taking so many painkillers for headaches, and I was smoking copious amounts of cannabis, and I was doing a lot to dull pain because I didn't like the feeling
Yeah.
of life. It was hard.
Well, at your young age, going through all that, I mean, it's just too much.
Yeah. Yeah,
You've
it's
not
full
had
on.
a chance to grow yet.
No. And being a carer for my mum and seeing my mum basically dying in front of me was
Yeah.
a long, drawn out death, not something that's quick. It was hard. So you're kind of always preparing for death.
Sure.
And what's interesting now is, like, if I look at my kind of astrology, I'm a Scorpio, but I've got 5 planets in Scorpio. So a lot of my kind of chart, if you're into astrology, is about death and rebirth. It's about looking at the hidden. It's about going into the shadow and finding that light from that.
Interesting.
And when I look at my early life, that's exactly what it all was. It was kind of preparing me for that kind of journey.
Juliette, were you able to talk to your dad about all this? Did you have anyone where you had any kind of strong role model there, or you felt pretty much on your own then?
Yeah, so I didn't really want to bother my dad because I knew he was going through all of this as well, and I didn't want to put
Yeah,
more worry on
so
him.
you're protecting your dad as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, when I think I was about 16, my dad got cancer of his kidney, and so they had to move back to England because he had to be on a waiting list for dialysis because his other kidney wasn't functioning. So I stayed in America for longer. I stayed with some friends because I was a crucial part of my kind of high school years over there. And they moved back because they couldn't afford. My mum didn't have healthcare. My dad didn't have healthcare over there because it was I can't even speak now. What's the word? Pre-existing conditions. There we go. So my dad had been paying for all my mum's healthcare from the sale of his company. So he literally spent millions. When he died in debt, which is interesting, going from very, very wealthy to 100 grand in debt when you die. But so they moved back, and I eventually moved back when I was 17. But throughout it all, I had a massive love for drama. And that, I think, really got me through kind of everything, was the fact that if I was on stage, I could express my emotions and I could tap into this massive reservoir of experience of life.
Yes.
So I moved back here and went to drama school after I'd finished high school. And it was really great because when I was applying to the top drama schools, and they would all look at me and go, "You're 17," because I was quite young in my year, but
Yeah.
how do you have the life experience to, you know, be an actress, to be so young and to be applying for RADA and Lambda and stuff? And I said, how can you quantify life experience in age? I said, I've probably had more life experience than someone of 30. And looking back, you know, I was quite a naive teenager in some ways who had a lot of life experience, but was still 17.
Yeah, but you've had massive experience that most adults will never even get close to,
No.
even
So,
through the life.
yeah. But I got it. So I got into drama school and I studied to be a classical actress. My mum died when I was 21. My dad died when I was 30. He, unfortunately, after he lost mum, because he'd been a carer for her for so long,
Yeah,
he still lasted a bit longer, but, you know, his life quality, he just had illness after illness because she was the love of his life. And, you know,
yes. So
it's
his heart was
strain on him.
broken.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was a beautiful, beautiful man and a real healer. You know, he had a very healing energy, and I still call on him for his healing guidance,
excellent.
you know, on a regular basis.
Yeah,
So having lost both my parents by 30, you know, it's quite a young age, but
very young.
they taught me so much about life and about my journey in life. And after a few years in acting, I was like, sod this isn't for me. This is too cutthroat.
Well, there's a lot of work and it's nasty industry, isn't it? I worked in a drama school for a few years, so I've seen what it's like, and the amount of work. My daughter's aiming to go to drama school. She had an audition in New York recently, and they passed
Wow.
her. They wanted her from just a vocal. Anyway, and I'm digressing, but you know, obviously, as a parent, I'm aware that she's going to go into an industry or wants to go into an industry that is cutthroat. It is very difficult, and yeah, you got to work your nuts off as well.
Yeah. And I kind of had a vision when I was in my teens. So when I was kind of 17, 18, I was reading like Paulo Coelho and The Alchemist. And I was really, my spiritual kind of awakening was taking a deeper level. And I
Yeah,
was opening up a lot more to everything going on around me. And, you know, was really in tune with all of it. And I had a vision about acting and how I wanted to do it, and it being a healing thing. And what I realized is when you're on stage, there is an exchange between the audience and the person acting. There's an
yeah,
exchange of energy. So when you've got an audience that is really not into it, it's very hard to get that energy up because there's no exchange happening.
yes,
And what I realized is if people could really be there channeling the light and channeling this healing energy, it could be this really beautiful co-creative divine healing experience.
love it.
And that started to really wake up in me, and that's what I wanted to do. So the more I was doing other stuff, it was like, well, this isn't really fulfilling that urge, this desire that I can see what this could be.
Yeah,
And now, you know, jumping forward many years, like when I do talks, I feel it's much more of that exchange of energy. It's, you know, when I'm up there talking about health and well-being and the earth and all of this stuff, on one level it's me, but there's a flow, there's a deeper flow that happens, and it's very much, I don't prepare when I talk. I have a vague kind of preparation, but I
yeah,
feel the audience.
yeah. So you're almost channeling as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what's happening. But
Yeah.
when I was, after my mum died, I was like, can I swear on here? Or
Absolutely, we're always fucking swearing, Juliette.
I was just like, you know what, sod this. I'm not interested in healing. I'm not interested in any of this. Like, fuck you all.
Yeah,
I haven't been able to heal my mum. I don't want to do this anymore.
I understand that. Yeah, yeah,
And so I pulled away from all of this stuff that was so intrinsically me.
hmm
Because I was like, well, if I couldn't heal the person that like I learnt all this for,
then
what
what's the
is the
point?
point?
Mm.
So I it was, yeah, it was a very interesting kind of journey then of going in different routes that weren't
Yeah. So what did you do then? So if you pulled away from it and had you come through drama school, you'd left drama school.
Yeah, and I'd worked, I did a show at the first show I did was at the National Theatre,
Okay.
out of drama school, and,
Yeah.
it was all a bit downhill from there, to be
Yeah.
honest. And then I got a job working in production, corporate kind of video production. So I was a runner, and then I was a production assistant,
Okay.
and then a production manager. So I was doing I was still in the kind of
The
that
industry
field,
as such. Yeah.
um, but just not. And I was doing corporate videos, like me being in front of the camera doing corporate videos and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd got married when I was 20. I got married when I was quite young. I
Yeah.
think it was kind of an escape from my family,
Right.
wanting to just escape it all. And so I was able to work as an actress, do the production work, and then my husband at the time had an affair. So that then ended, and I was 23. I was single again, and that kind of made me think about my life again. And I was like, hang on,
Yeah.
like, what am I doing? I don't want to do acting. It's not fulfilling me. I
Yeah.
don't want to do just production stuff. I really want to fulfill my soul.
Sure.
And that calling was coming back of like healing and like actually tapping back into my life purpose. And so I started to investigate healing and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I bought a flat and rented it out, moved back home with my dad, and there was a mind, body, spirit shop opening in Fulham.
All
And
right.
I went and got a job there and started doing a 2-year crystal healing diploma course. And it was brilliant. It was great to kind of be immersed in that energy of healing. And I studied Sekhem, which is an ancient Egyptian healing art.
Oh wow.
And it's amazing because I've always had quite a pull to Egypt. So that was when I found that, I was like, this is it. This is amazing. So I was
Right.
studying that whilst I was doing the crystal healing. And so my life just became consumed with learning about healing
Lovely.
and crystals. And yeah, it was great. I felt like I'd come home again.
And I suppose when you're healing or helping people as well, I know in my journey, I've always felt that I've needed to help others. I don't know, more than myself. That's part of my problem, I guess. But you do get a great joy inside. There's a good glow inside, I feel, when you've managed to help someone, even in the smallest way.
Yeah, it's so beautiful
Yeah.
having that experience of being able to guide people. What I know now, which is really interesting, is that what I was doing was I was almost trying to make up for the fact that I couldn't heal my mum. And
I
so
see.
my desire to heal came from a wound. So I was always trying to support and help everyone else. And it was slight avoidance of really getting into my own trauma and my own
Mhm.
healing. In hindsight,
Yeah.
you can kind of see these things.
Yeah, sure, sure. But it's your journey, isn't it? This is why these stories are so important, I find, because as you're talking now, I can almost put the pieces together a little bit already, how you've progressed from a lot of trauma
Yeah.
into what you're doing now. But obviously, please continue on this part.
So one of the things that I remember I forgot to mention is my mum looked at when she was ill. She looked at all different aspects. So she was seeing this professor, amazing, mad professor, and he said nutrition was key with MS. So she changed our diet overnight. We became pescatarians, cut out all meat, cut out refined sugars, cut out a lot of gluten. We went on an ultra healthy. We ate loads of lentils. Lots of fish, because fish was high in omega oils, which was meant to be very good. She had her amalgam fillings removed because of the possibility of the mercury toxicity. So she went down a lot of rabbit holes with her health and what she could do, high vitamin C, all this stuff. So she really planted the seeds in my life of nutrition and how what you eat has a huge impact. You know, as a teenager, I stuck my fingers up, and while living in America, I ate so much junk food. It was unbelievable. You know, the accessibility of McDonald's and KFC, not KFC, but all that kind of fast food stuff is huge. So, you know, but interestingly enough, and coming up in, you know, where I'm in the timeline, nutrition came back fairly soon into my life. But so the healing, I was kind of immersed in all of that. And in this process of this time, I found out that I had severe endometriosis. And so I was seeing the doctors. I was in a lot of pain always with my menstrual cycle. And so I was seeing the doctors, and they said I had to have surgery on it. I had precancerous cells in my cervix, so they wanted to get rid of those. And I was learning crystal healing at the time, so I was like, you know what, this is a bit of a chance to like see if this actually works. There's a little bit of a science kind of brain in me amongst all the healing stuff, so I was like, this is a bit of an experiment. So I started to really work with the crystals on healing this. And I was due to go back in for the surgery. So I was like, okay, I've got 3 months before this surgery to really hit this on the head. So I did intense healing work, worked on my diet a little bit, not hugely, but a little bit dietary, but it was mainly through energetic healing. Went back in and I said, can you, before you like go in and scrape the lining of my cervix out, can you just have a look first? At what's going on? I said, because I think that it's gone.
Right.
And at the time, I was meant to be 98% infertile because of the endometriosis, all this stuff. They looked at my cervix, and the precancerous cells had gone.
Wow.
And the endometriosis, they couldn't see any traces of it.
That's incredible, Juliette. I mean, long story. I mean, people who are watching may not have heard of endometriosis, but I've got a huge personal experience with this. My partner, when we met, within 6 months, she'd already had endometriosis for years before, but she literally was floored within 6 months. And endometriosis put her in a wheelchair, and she had so much surgery. And she's got so much scar tissue damage now, and her organs were fused together and tearing, and this, that, and the other. You know, I mean, it's cannabis these past couple of years, which has helped to cope with the actual pain. But I know how serious endometriosis can be. And it seems to me that the healthcare systems, the doctors and whatever, they don't really know what they're doing with it.
No, they don't. And I mean, I think that's the case with most things, to be honest.
Well, yeah, that's true. You know? Unless it's making money.
There's some areas that they're very, very good with. You know, you look at accident and emergency care, it's incredible.
Brilliant.
And, you know, I'm so freaking grateful that we're in England and we've got the NHS for emergency care. It's 100%. Phenomenal.
It's phenomenal, but,
you know, when you look at deeper things, there isn't, part of it is there's not joined up thinking. And I think this is it. You know, we are more than just our physical body. So when you only look at a symptom of something and you only address that, you're not addressing the root cause of anything.
No.
And this is the problem with modern medicine, is we are more than our physical body. So when you look at endometriosis, I believe there's trauma trapped in cells causing this problem. You know, a lot of it is also linked to diet, but I worked with malachite, which is a crystal, and that was to help me release trauma from my womb and that whole area. And that's what I worked with. So much trauma came up when I was doing the healing, because there was so much. And I don't think now, looking back, it was just my trauma. I think it's collective ancestral trauma of, you know, women sexually being abused, also the not just the sexual abuse, but the kind of patriarchal suppression of women's sexual energy and that sexual fire, which is huge. And now I'm doing a lot of work on that, you know, much further down the line. But I think that was a lot of what was going on with me, was this sexual suppression of that vital life force. Because, you know, as a young girl who's fairly attractive, you know, and I've always been quite a kind of sexual, I've got quite a lot of sexual energy. I've got quite a flirty nature. I'm quite bubbly. I've got that creative passion.
Yeah.
You know, it's always been looked at as being wrong. You know, there's that thing of that you're a slut or whatever, not to do with what you're doing with your sexuality, but just if you're flirty, then you get labeled with these things. So I think a lot of that
well, that suppresses you as an individual of who you are, where you can't express yourself as the actual personality you do hold.
Exactly. And now, you know, in hindsight, I look at that energy that I had, and, you know, I think a lot of that goes back to, I believe, past lives where I was doing a lot of kind of this sexual work, you know, in Egypt and things like that. You know, sexual energy has always been, if used in a certain way, it's a way of initiation. The kind of tantric path it opens you up.
It's the most powerful energy, though. I mean, life's created with sexual energy. It's the most powerful energy that we hold, really.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, so I did this healing, left the doctors, and then had never been that careful, because I knew I couldn't get pregnant because of I had so many issues. Then my oldest boy was then conceived in the woods one day.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And I was 26. I was doing my crystal healing training. I was living at home with my dad, renting out the flat I owned in London. And suddenly my life, you know, I'd kind of always planned to get married, you know, in that traditional way. And suddenly I'm a single mum at quite a young age.
Yeah.
Going, oh my God, what am I going to do? But, you know, life unfolds as it's meant to. And my oldest son is such a joy. He's 18, doing his A-levels at the moment. And he was such a blessing in my life. And what was interesting, as soon as I got pregnant, I dreamt that I was pregnant before I knew I was pregnant. I dreamt that it was beautiful. I was on this boat in my dream, and it was more of a meditation. I was handed this baby, the sun and the moon combined, and I was handed this baby. And I just took it as this metaphor of what was coming, but didn't realize that was actually what had happened. And as soon as I found out, I knew that this child's name was Samuel. I mean, I had so much kind of insight at the time. I had so much, I was receiving so many downloads. It was a very open time for me. And, you know, when Samuel was born, he was such a magical boy. I would sit and meditate with him, and as he was breastfeeding, I would chant through the chakras, and, you know, it was very peaceful and calm, and still is a very calm being.
Yeah.
But when I got pregnant, I suddenly had this awakening of, this isn't about me anymore. This is about someone else. And that's when I started to study nutrition, because I wanted to bring him up as vegetarian, but I didn't want to make any mistakes. And people at the time were saying that if I did it wrong, he'd be brain damaged because he wouldn't get the nutrients, which is a load of crap. And I knew it was, but I didn't have that. I didn't have the science and the answer to say, you're talking bullshit.
Yeah. To give you that confidence to stand up against it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I started studying nutrition at Regent's College, and it was not ever to do as a job. It was because I wanted to give my son the best start.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to really look at what I was eating, because I was aware that I was growing this being and I wanted him to have the best start in life.
Yeah.
And it was such an amazing thing, because all the education my mum had given me came flooding back in.
Right.
And also, when he was then born, you know, everything had to be organic, no refined sugar. You know, I was really, you know, I was one of those mums who would bring food to a birthday party so that he could have his carrot sticks and his organic raisins and
It takes bravery, that, Juliette, I think, because people in the herd mentality, if you like, they'll be all, well, why is she so different? What,
Yeah.
and you do get that, don't you?
And I've always been different, and it's been hard because I've never fitted into the, normal circles.
Well, that's why you're awake, you see.
Yeah.
You're not meant to.
But growing up, it's hard. It's and I still sometimes
Yeah.
find it hard. It's like, that not always being that kind of weird, different one on the fringe of everything.
It's so
Um,
beautiful to be weird and different, though. I mean, it's
yeah.
just like, embrace it. I was always like that saying to my daughter, because she was always standing out a little bit too much, and because she's full on, and then she struggled in school. She went to the Maharishi school, which is fabulous because she did meditation there and stuff.
Wow.
But it's a small class, and my daughter is like very flamboyant, and she had nowhere to hide, so she really struggled with it. But you got to be your weird, wonderful self, you know.
You
I
do.
love
And I was bullied in high school a few times. I was bullied when I was younger. Before we moved to America, I was so pleased to be going because my best friend turned on me with this other girl, and they would follow me home and say, "Your mum wears nappy. She's mentally
Oh,
retarded."
yes.
It was horrendous. And I got one of the girls suspended for her behaviour. And I remember that day walking past her, and I was like, "You're not taking the piss out of me anymore. I'm not
Yeah.
having this." And it was. I
Yeah.
think we have these moments through our lives where we come into our power and we stand strong, and we're maybe weak before that. And then we're like, nah, boom,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
having this.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a line, isn't there?
There is.
And that's a big line, I must admit. It's just I can't understand how people can be so cruel, but they are, especially when they're younger and they're growing up and not had the wisdom and not
Yeah.
felt pain themselves. But
And
listen,
I was bullied again in high school because I was too different. And I was like, I'll change, I'll change, I'll change. And then after about a month, they're like, oh, you're still too weird. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you.
yeah,
I'm
exactly,
done.
totally.
I'll be weird. I'll
Yeah,
be myself. And
yes,
it pushed me to be even more me because I was like, actually, like,
rebel then as well.
yeah, sod
Yeah,
this. I'm gonna paint my nails every different color under the sun. I'm gonna wear
yeah,
plaid DMs and be whoever I want to be.
good.
Whilst living in Florida where everyone wore Gap clothes and was
Oh
exactly kind of the
yeah,
same, you know.
good for
I'll listen to
you.
the Prodigy, and
Yeah,
whilst everyone else is listening to Boyzone or whatever.
good for you. Good for you. Takes
But
character though, especially when you're
yeah,
younger. It takes character.
yeah, and it builds character having to kind of step into who you are
Yeah,
and
yeah,
be that be the person you're meant to be. And I think the journey with my oldest boy has been it was really the catalyst for me to wake up fully into kind of health, not just healing but health, because that's the thing that I kept seeing in the healing world is there's so many freaking unhealthy healers,
right. Yeah, yeah,
and they're working on the spiritual, but we are in this physical body.
yeah. We've got to look after that body, haven't we?
We do, and we can't just work etherically. We can't just say, I'll just heal it. It's like we have to actually take action and take responsibility for ourselves.
Mm.
And what I realized with my son was that I've been given this body to fulfill a purpose, to fulfill my soul's purpose. And I've always felt that I've got quite a big purpose. Not being egotistical or big-headed, but I've just
Oh,
felt that I've got a mission, I've got a message to get across.
I totally get you. Yeah,
And
totally
if
get
I
it.
don't look after my body, I'm not going to have the energy to do that.
Yes.
And that really, and that has been cemented in more and more and more over the years. It's I have to look after this beautiful body I've been gifted, because otherwise I'm not going to have the energy. I'm not going to have the strength to do what I've got to do.
Yeah.
And I remember doing a healing session once, and the energy that had to come through, because I always said, for the highest good of the person, let the energy come through for the highest good of the person. And this energy, my whole body was shaking. And afterwards, I felt like I'd run a marathon. And I was wiped out physically. My muscles hurt for like a week
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
And I promised myself that day that if I was going to work as a healer, I had to first look after myself.
Yeah.
And that had to become my primary concern, was my physical body, my health, my strength, so that if I was going to be saying I'm going to channel the healing energy for the person that needs it for their highest good, then I have to be able to honor that
Mm-hmm.
and carry that through my being.
I understand that because I went through that situation myself last year after I became a Reiki master myself, and I was healing. I was doing a healing for this particular lady, and I remember shaking. There was a lot of energy coming through, and I was literally shaking. I was on my knees by the end of it and blowing until I realized I need to be channeling more source energy than rather than using my own and depleting my own energy. But it's just lessons, I suppose. But it shows. I mean, people who have never done Reiki or any kind of energy healing in that respect won't really understand how it feels. But it's quite. I mean, I don't know how you feel as well, but I feel the love coming through me as well. It's just
It's
amazing.
beautiful. Yeah,
Oh,
it
incredible.
is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But as I kind of learnt more healing and nutrition, what I saw is like people come to me, it's like, that's a nutritional deficiency, that's an energy thing. And I was doing all these things separately. And it was like, I need to start combining it. I have to find a way to merge these things that I'm doing. I moved out of London when my son was 2.5. I moved to Saffron Walden, which was in Essex, and
Right.
I bought myself a house. And I was working 4 different jobs to kind of pay for things. I was working teaching drama to
Right.
kids. But what I was doing, it was called Inspiring Life. And I was teaching them meditation and breath work
Love
uh,
it.
through the drama, because I was like, drama is such a tool for healing. So I was doing that, and that was really profound. And I felt fulfilled on the drama sense, but I felt fulfilled on a deeper level because I was giving these kids tools,
Yes.
um, which
Beautiful.
was, yeah, it was amazing. It was really good. And then I was doing a lot of healing work with kids as well. I think wherever you're at, um, what I've always done is wherever I'm at in my life, whatever I'm going through, that's what I share with people. So when my son was young, I was in that space of doing yoga with him and meditation with him. So that's kind of what I was putting out to the world, was that, because that's where I was at.
Yeah.
Um, and I like to teach from a space of real authenticity of what I'm experiencing. Like,
Yeah.
I've just gone through this, and these are the tools that I used. Hopefully that will help someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, because that's truth, isn't it? Like, I
Yes.
don't ever want to be fake or just doing something from book learning. We can all read books, but it's about that. For me, it's about that actual experience. And I think part of the reason I've gone through so much in my life is so that I can transmute it. I can turn that darkness into the light, and then I can help other people with that.
So that's beautiful. And like you were saying, though, I mean, you can read a book, but you don't necessarily know who's written that book.
No.
So the wisdom and the experiences you have are the most powerful ones, really. Any textbook is kind of irrelevant, really, when it comes to that.
Yeah, and we can get guidance from books. I love
Oh,
books. I've got a house filled with thousands of books. We all love books, but
yeah.
it's that, for me, it's that real practical knowledge that has um, the deepest vein of truth,
Yes. Which
really.
we all need right now more than ever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, a really big part of my learning and my journey, and I remember it from my teenage years, I would go into the park or the woods, and I'd sit by a tree, and I would meditate, and I would tune in, and I'd have such incredible downloads that would come. And I've always found that when I was in nature, that was when I felt the most connected, and I had the most epiphany moments.
Yeah.
And as I've kind of grown up in my life, when I was really blessed to meet my husband. We were at the yoga show, and when I moved to Saffron Walden, it was very funny because I typed in family yoga because we've been doing it in London, and
Yeah.
this guy popped up, Juliette Bryant. So I emailed him, "Are you doing family yoga?" And he emailed me back, "Sorry, not doing it right now. I'll keep you posted." And then I typed in Saffron Walden ley lines because I was very interested at this point
Okay.
in energy lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the interesting way how I moved to Saffron Walden was because I knew I wanted to leave London. I had to be within about an hour and a half radius of London for my dad, who was still alive at the time.
Yeah.
And so I got a pendulum and I asked, and it landed on Saffron Walden. And I was like, okay. I remember going there years before to do a Tai Chi day, and it was lovely. And I was like, okay, Saffron Walden. And then I asked my son to come in, he was 2 at the time, and point on the map where he wanted to live. And he hadn't seen what I was doing, and he came in and he pointed on Saffron Walden. And I was like,
That was meant to be then, weren't it?
oh my God. So yeah, I moved there, but I knew there was something that had pulled me there. So I wanted to investigate that. And I was really into sacred sites and the earth energy lines and the Michael and Mary lines at the time. And so I wanted to explore what had pulled me there. So I typed in sacred sites, Saffron Walden, and Giles's name came up again. So I messaged him. He sent me a bit of a fob off email. And then we were at the yoga show and I was working and he was there and we both almost like banged into each other. And I was like, oh, aren't you that guy that, and we got chatting. Yeah, exactly. And then we were both, there was a band called Atma playing and we were both by the stage dancing and no one else was dancing except for us. And so you could tell that we both had a similar vibe. And then we became friends from that point. And
Wow.
I've got 2 kids. We've got 2
Beautiful.
kids.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and he spent so much time looking after my oldest boy and being a lovely father to him. But he's really into sacred sound and the earth energies, and
Nice.
That's been a really interesting expansion in my journey as well. I hope I'm not boring you with
Not at all. No, please. This is fantastic.
There's so many avenues that potentially I could explore and talk about. Life is so rich, and
it is. But all these modalities that you seem to be on this journey, obviously, and then you're meeting a partner that's bringing a new dimension of healing as well.
Yeah, and at the time I was very, very interested in sacred sound. I was looking at doing sound work, and I was into Jonathan Goldman's sacred chants and all of that stuff. And I was really aware that sound had such a powerful way to heal. But what I've come to realize, down the line, is that ultimately everything is just vibration.
Yes.
So whether you work with crystals, whether you work with food, whether you work with sound, whether you work with energy, it's all exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
At the core, it's just vibration.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And so, when I had that realization, what I realized is these are all just different ways that people resonate with. But also it was a very profound awakening when it came to the food side of things, because what I realized is if this mushroom is just vibration, if this is actually just sound, because that's what vibration is, ultimately it's sound waves.
Yeah.
So if this is just sound, then I don't actually need this to tap into this energy, because it's just vibration. Yeah. So I can think about it and I can call that vibration in by tuning into it. Right. Like you can tune into a note, you can tune into a plant, you can tune into a crystal. You don't need any of them. They're helpful, but we don't need them.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, yeah.
So this took my nutrition work to a whole different level, because suddenly it was like, well, actually, if I've got a scratchy throat and I need rosemary, but rosemary's not there, what do I do? Well, I'll just breathe rosemary into my being.
Wow, I love it.
It's like we can breathe colors. Color therapy is another vibration, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is ace. I love it.
It's these different ways that we can work with things. And yes, it's amazing to work with the mushrooms physically and actually to make a tea with the mushrooms and go out and collect them and, be with them physically. Yeah. But if we're more than physical beings, and we actually have to, when we're working with the mushroom, we need to call on that energetic property of it to bring that into our healing. And I think that's why I call myself a superfood alchemist, because when I'm making my blends, when I'm making all my potions, my mixes, my superfood concoctions, what I do is I hear the sounds of on an energetic level. I kind of hear the sounds of the plants. Amazing. And it's like when I'm combining them, it's like, oh, that's it. And you kind of hit the symphony.
Yeah, yeah.
And because I'm working with them on this deeper level, it's not just like Rishi's good for this, so I'm going to add this, and this is good for this, so I'm adding that. It's very physical and dense and on this 3D plane. But as we're opening up to this fifth dimensional existence, and as we're having this shift, We need remedies. We need things that are helping us with that shift, that are supporting us, expanding our consciousness and expanding our awareness, so we're not just limited to physical things.
Well, that's right. I mean, obviously, the food and drink that's kind of like you're saying about fast food. I mean, there's obvious purpose behind the reasons why that's so heavily marketed and it's become addictive and this, that, and the other is because they want you kept at a lower density anyway. You're so much easily controlled if you are. So if you are, this is where one of my, I've said this to Kev, who sadly isn't with us today because he was dying to speak to you. One of my biggest issues, I've pretty much mastered a lot of myself, I must admit, but one of my biggest issues is food. I love food. I'm not the worst eater in the world, Juliette, by any stretch. I'm really not. But I do love food. And then last year when I was going on my own sort of self-healing process, and then I was coming across work with, say, Santos Bonacci, who's, you know, an astrotheologist, but then through that, I was finding things about, you don't need to eat 3 meals a day. That's bullshit. And, you know, you should be eating more green and this and the other. And I know that's kind of like, you're told that anyway. And I started looking into Toltec stuff as well, Toltec wisdom, and you know, and they would just eat fruit or even nothing at all. They'd be breatharians or whatever. It's like, whoa, I've never heard of any of this before. But then you start thinking about the quantum physics, if you like, the quantum mechanics of the whatever reality we are in, because we're just projecting, aren't we? So you're saying physical, that mushroom is physical, but what is physical? It's vibration, isn't it?
And that's where the breatharian stuff is, you know, if you can tune into the energy of a flower or the energy of a plant and breathe that into your being, you're nourishing yourself on that deeper energetic level.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that's, you know, that's a way to really fill yourself up. I mean, I'm sure that we've all done it. We've smelt a flower and gone, oh, and felt that richness and that fullness in our being from that smell. Well, we're not ingesting it.
Yeah.
But we're breathing its energetic vibration into our being through the sense of smell, and we get that sense of fullness in our being.
Yeah, wow, interesting. That's the first time I've heard that before, and that's just, yeah, incredible, that, Juliette. Yeah, I love it.
I mean, I think I love food too. I absolutely love food. I've written a few books, Divine Desserts and Superfoods, and how to use them, because food is our medicine, and we can make beautiful things. But what I realized very early on in this whole thing was, you know, we're programmed with healthy, well, not healthy, the healthy food tastes like crap. It's boring. It's like salad. You know, and a salad consists of lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers in our programmed mind. A salad isn't this amazing potential that it could be, you know. And so healthy food instantly has this like, okay, it's a drag, it's a bore. Whereas like our treats are these rich, decadent, lovely things that you think about and you go, oh, yeah. But what I realized was that we don't have to have that. You can have, so my first book, sadly, these are out of physical print, but they're ebooks, but Divine Dessert. So the tagline was have your cake and eat it. And it's vegan, gluten-free, refined, sugar-free recipes. You know, and there's
like
that, you know, beautiful things that are
fabulous.
So it's like,
I'm hungry now.
Huh?
I'm hungry now, Juliette, just looking at them.
But it was like that. What I realized was everyone loves cake. Everyone loves cake.
That's true.
You know, I love cake. I love sweet things. Probably because 70% of society is riddled with candida, fungal overgrowths and parasites, which are feeding on the sugar. But if you do cakes and desserts without refined sugar, with natural sugars, you know, using dates, using fruit, you know, using nuts and seeds and all these things, then it's an amazingly healthy thing to have. And so you can feel fulfilled. You feel like you're not missing out, but you've got this nice thing to eat. I think
sorry to interrupt, Julia, because one of the things I remember in terms of this process is that we're very good at satisfying what goes in here, but we're not satisfying what's actually going in our gut, are we? You know, it's like we'll have that cake because it tastes good, or we'll have that that soft drink because it tastes good, but it's actually we're just satisfying this bit here, and that then satisfies this bit up here for a little bit, and then we end up sluggish and feeling a
Yeah.
bit shit, and then it can also cause problems, obviously, where it's important, and that's in the gut, isn't it?
So what's really important is what's known as a minimum optimum diet. You eat the least amount of food with the most amount of nutrients. And most people in today's society live in a different way. They're eating a large plate of food, which has a very small amount of nutrients.
Yeah.
And what happens is you eat that food, you feel full in your belly.
Yeah.
And then when you've digested that food a little bit, your body goes, I'm hungry. Now, it's not hungry for food, it's hungry for nutrients because it knows food equals nutrients. So then it's asking you to eat more. So you keep eating, trying to satisfy this hunger for nutrients, which you're not giving it. And that's why your belly then gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because we're not actually fulfilling this base need of nutrients.
And this is by design again, because ultimately, my understanding again, when I was looking at the Toltec stuff, was food. You know, you're taught in this Western world that you know have these meals because you need the energy, but actually it's the other way around. Because obviously, if you have a massive load of food, the first thing you want to do is fall asleep.
Exactly.
So it's actually you're burning energy by eating too much.
Yeah, and you know, I've seen the power of plants to heal. I've seen how amazing they can be, but also on the other hand, the power of fasting and the power that has to heal is so remarkable. But the two things come together, and that's where we have to have this beautiful dance of, well, what actually are we going to put in our body? And what I like to say to myself on a regular basis and teach people is, do I want to survive or do I want to thrive? And so when you think about the food you're eating, it's like, well, is this food going to help me thrive, or am I just going to survive? Sometimes we need to just survive. Like driving home from a talk late at night, you know, hungry and getting tired, my blood sugar dropping, I might stop and buy a flapjack that's got refined sugar in it, because actually I need that to keep me focused, to get me home safely.
But that's still nasty, though. That's fine, because that's you're not actually addicted to that. It's not controlling you. You've just made a decision for that period of time.
Exactly. But that's where I think this thing of like survive or thrive, like what do I want to do? And I think this is the mentality that we need to change in our lives as a collective. It's like most people are just surviving day to day.
Yeah.
In existence, they're just surviving.
Well, we're so busy. They make people so busy, and the convenient food is there. Everything, as I keep saying, is by design.
Yeah, totally. And you know, the busier we are, the less we can actually have that time to breathe and connect with the earth. And what I realized from quite a young age is my mission statement. It's changed a little bit. My mission was always to heal through communication. And then that evolved to my mission in life is really to connect people back into the earth. And through that connection to the earth, help them remember who they are.
Love it. I love that.
Because ultimately, once you start eating healthier food, then you start to look into, oh, maybe I'll grow some food, or maybe I'll forage, you know, and it sets you, or you start looking at foraging. You know, so many people in the whole COVID BS started looking into foraging because they had time on their hands, and they're like, oh, actually there might be food shortages, let's look into growing our own food. So, you know, there were some good things that happened in all of that.
I've just had some lettuce from my garden for my lunch today. It's the first time I've grown anything ever. We've got things growing. It's like I'm having some. Oh, look, let's have some lettuce today with my you know. But that's the first time we've grown anything ever. Yeah,
it's an amazing thing. You know, I spent the day yesterday in the garden. We've got loads of things growing, and I love it. It's growing food and foraging food is just there's something so beautiful about that connection with the earth. And the fact that the earth provides, you know, and how grateful I feel when I see, you know, a flower on the tomato, or I see a courgette that's like this big coming up.
No, it's so funny. Even I was having that, and it's just a lettuce leaf with I had it with my sandwich, because I'm still eating sandwiches. I'm still, like I say, I'm far from perfect, but I've never been more grateful. And I'm like, thank you. Just because I've actually picked it at my own garden.
I know. But the nutrients from that lettuce leaf would be so much higher than a lettuce that you buy in the shops, because you pick an apple. That apple freshly picked from a tree has more probiotics on it than the majority of probiotics you buy in a shop.
Interesting.
The nutrients start to degrade as soon as you pick food. So within a few hours of picking something, the nutrients have halved.
Interesting. Yeah, so they say eating live food is...
Exactly, because you've got the bacteria, you've got the energetic freshness of it. It's alive. It's not been wrapped in plastic, irradiated, and pesticided, and all of this other stuff that that goes on. And that, for me, is a big part of my mission, is to share this awareness with people that we have to start taking control of our health. We have to stop handing over. We've been programmed. Something's wrong, you go to the doctor, or you go to a nutritionist, you go to someone and you hand your problems over and you say, fix me.
Yeah, take some responsibility for yourself. Yeah,
exactly. And, I run mentorship programs. I run lots of different things. I do nutritional consultations, but a big part of it is teaching people to empower themselves. I don't want someone just to hand their stuff to me and expect me to sort them out, because that's not how it works. You have to take ownership. And when you take ownership and responsibility and you learn, oh, actually, this is my body signaling to me that something is out of balance. And you learn those ways to listen, then next time your body signals something to you, you've got the skills to be able to go, my body's saying something. What's it saying? And you can tune into that body wisdom. I used to do that with healing. It's like, if people came for more than 7 sessions, I wouldn't do it anymore. I'd say, you have to learn this yourself. I'm not here just to do healing on you. Like, you have to take ownership.
Yeah. A lot of this, I think, it would help if people were able to slow down in their daily tasks. I think that the issue, and they know by design, if you throw people into work 9 to 5 and everyone's struggling with finances and surviving week to week, and then taking extra work in the evenings, and they've got kids and this and the other, they're just not able to slow down enough to kind of to look after themselves.
No, but that's very, very true. But there are simple ways. If you want to, there's always time. And I think, sometimes I get overwhelmed with all the work I've got to do. I've got 3 kids, and it's a lot sometimes. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to fit this all in. How am I going to do all this? And what I try to do in those moments is go outside, step on the earth, breathe, connect and ground, make a list and go, it's fine. There's infinite time. There's infinite time to get it all done. And suddenly you find that you can get through everything so quickly, because you've stopped. It's almost like you're stopping time. You're pulling back from this illusion of time being linear.
Time is an illusion.
Exactly, which we play into. So you stop, you ground, you connect to the earth, and you ask for that support, and boom, suddenly time opens up.
I love it, because this is another thing people don't ask as well. They just, and I've been guilty of that, but one of my sort of my first spiritual awakening really came from asking for help.
Yeah.
So, don't be frightened. Well, just be aware that when you do ask, that things will happen. It might not happen exactly the way you've asked, so just be careful when you do. But it does happen.
Yeah. I remember when I was, I think I was 25, and it was just before I reset my life on its new trajectory. And I'd asked for my spiritual kind of gifts to come back, because I'd switched them all off, and I'd asked for that to happen. And then had like a mass Kundalini awakening, and was in a trance for 10 days, sat with 12, I was in a circle with 12 elders for 10 days, literally in this space of like, and I was lucid enough that at one point I called up a friend, and I was like, I don't know if I've gone mad. Like, I don't know if I'm sane anymore, if as I'd step outside the house and I'd hear people's thoughts, I was like, it was intense. And the person said, no, you're having a Kundalini awakening. It's fine. Just go with it. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, what is a Kundalini awakening? I'll go with this. If I'm not going mad, that's fine. I'll go with this. But it was a profound experience to kind of, and it was because I asked, and you know, nothing can happen unless we ask. As you said, it's such an important thing.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the other thing that is so important every day is to be grateful.
Yeah.
That's how I start my day, with gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
For everything that is. And you know, even when I've recently gone through a very, very hard time, it was kind of probably the hardest time of my life.
Right.
Over the last few years, I didn't know how, sometimes day after day, I didn't know how I was going to get through. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to survive this. I don't know how I'm going to cope or stay sane and keep this together.
Yeah.
And I just kept asking for help and being grateful.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for, you know, the moment. I'm grateful for whatever I can do. But now, you know, we've kind of come out of that darkness, and I can see the benefit and the reason. And again, everything is a gift. And I knew that in the moment. I knew that there would be a gift. I just had to find it, and I just had to keep searching for that gift.
They're often lessons, aren't they, Juliette? These challenging moments, and it's part of your soul growth, I suppose, as well. But when you're in the middle of it, you don't see the wood for the trees often, and it's not easy. But when you finally get through, one thing that's been obvious for me in the challenges I've faced is the fog does clear. Everything is temporary. So and then you can look back and analyze it.
Yeah.
Not that it's
And
easy, but
it's interesting because it's 1:11 as well. Oh, it was. It's now.
Oh, I just missed it. Perfect. Oh,
You just missed it. I just
phone.
saw it. But it's, you know, one of the things, it's like I created new products. So I make so many different things, and I create them based on like my needs, my family's needs, or the needs of those around me. And then
Yeah.
you just see how profound some of these things can be. Recently, so I made this for my son, who was having a really, really, so COVID hit, lockdown hit, and suddenly my middle son developed severe OCD and anxiety, and was in such a hard place. I mean, it was hell, the place he was in. You
There's
know,
nothing worse than your child going through stuff. There's nothing
yeah,
worse than that.
no. And he suddenly wouldn't eat anything that wasn't wrapped in plastic. You know, and I was thinking, well, Jesus Christ, this is just going to exacerbate anything that's going on with you, because you're now not having any. But he wouldn't eat. He didn't eat for days. So I was like, just eat whatever. Just eat. Just please eat food. And, you know, it went on for probably 3 years, really severe issues. And then it came to a head when he was kind of, the school said, you have to bring him in. So we brought him in by force, and he got his fingers stuck in the door in school and nearly chopped off. And then he went to hospital and had to have surgery, and they gave him midazolam as a pre-med. He'd never had antibiotics in his life. He was 10 at this point. He'd never had Calpol. He'd never had any pain, you know, anything pharmaceutical, had never touched his body. And I didn't know they were giving him midazolam. They said, we're giving him something to calm him down for surgery. And within 10 minutes of having it, his eyes just went psycho. And when he came out of surgery, he was like a wild animal who had lost all sense of rational. I mean, it was horrendous. The trauma that he went through and I went through, being in the hospital with him, seeing him, you know, they had to pin him down. 6 security men had to pin him down and inject him to calm him down, because he was hurting himself. It was because of this drug that they'd put in his system that his system couldn't cope with. And then for a month, he was in this kind of I don't know what you would describe it as, like non-conscious, non-aware state, where he was just in fight or flight. Like he was like a wild animal. And then we spent a year trying to rebuild him. And you know, he sometimes couldn't leave his room. It would take him 4 hours to get dressed to go somewhere, and he would want to do something, but he couldn't because of his own inner workings. It meant he couldn't actually get out the door to go to something he really wanted to do. You know, it was hell. And through this, he stopped talking to my husband, to his father, for 1.5 years.
Wow.
You know, it was intense. And I was the only one who could look after him most of the time. And I was the one who was the main earner, and my work takes me away. So
Yeah.
I would have to leave bags of food in his room so that he could eat, you know. Anyway, it was
Yeah.
intense.
Sorry to hear that.
But I started to, I thought, I knew I had to get mushrooms into him. I was like, the mushrooms are the answer. I have to get mushrooms into him. I didn't know how. But then
Okay.
there was a little window that opened up where he'd let me make him a drink bottle, because everything had to be sealed, you know. And so I designed this mushroom tincture, which
Okay.
was really strong. Lion's mane, reishi, chaga, cordyceps,
Fabulous.
and turkey tails. And I started putting that into his drink. And within a few weeks, I started to see a difference. And I started to give him VSL3 probiotic. And it's powderless and tasteless, so it dissolves. So I would put that in.
Yeah.
And it started to see a difference. You know, these two things started to open him up. And I then added in some Bach flower remedies. I'd been speaking at a conference, and this woman was speaking about Bach flower remedies, and she was going through different ones, and I just jotted down a few. I was like, can you make up a remedy with these 4 things in? So I was giving him those, and his whole being transformed from these 3 things, from someone who was suspected autism, PDA, which is pathological demand avoidance, you know, OCD, anxiety, who literally was struggling to function, to someone who he couldn't sleep. You know, he'd be up for sometimes 48 hours, this 10-year-old, you know, to now he goes to sleep by, you know, it's about midnight, it's a bit later, but it's not 4 or 5 in the morning, you know. He's up, you know, for school every day. He's back in school.
Amazing.
He just got his green belt in karate. He's
Wow.
doing music production.
Fabulous.
He's just, and he has his moments. Today he was in a bad space, you know. I'm upping his mushrooms today. So he's not, every day's not perfect, and we're not, but it's
Progress though. Massive
oh my God,
progress.
it's huge progress. And
Yeah.
like, he's now talking to his father again, and they've you know, it's beautiful, the shift that's happened. And I really put that down to the power of plants, to that healing energy of
Yeah.
the mushrooms, you know, of the flower remedies, you know, which is just a vibrational essence. And I've shared about my story a lot on social media as I'm going. This is what I'm trying. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, people have said, "Oh, let me know how you get on." Anyway, as success has happened, lots of different families have said, "Oh, I'd like to try what you're doing." So they've got the mushroom tincture. They've got my all you need superfood mix, which has literally everything in it. And I've had all these messages from people who've said, "I cannot believe the change in my child. I cannot believe that we're starting to see, you know, him back. He's enjoying things, you know." And it's not getting rid of things, but it's massively improving the quality of life.
It will do. It will do.
And
They don't
it's
teach that in kids' school, do they?
no, but that's, you know, that's what makes me so freaking, that's why I do this. It's like, you know, to make those changes in my life, you know, and then that ripple effect. And on my mentorship program, someone last week, it's week 8 of a 12-week program, she's had post-viral syndrome, and, you know, been chronic fatigue for 11 months, really struggled. And she sent a message about a week ago, and she said, "I cannot believe it. Like, I feel myself again. Like, this is incredible." And it's part of it's from grounding and connecting to the earth. It's from taking the different remedies. It's from clearing out the parasites in our system. You know, there's so many different things. Getting rid of heavy metals. You know, another woman I'm working with has been in psychosis on and off, and she's been on meds. She took herself off without me, and then she came to me and she said, "Oh, can you help me?" It turns out she's got parasites in her system, and I traced it back. I was like, when did this all start? Like, what happened? It's like this puzzle, you kind of, and that's where this kind of intuitive side comes in, to like piece this puzzle together and say, I think it came from when you were in Mexico and you got a parasite. You know, let's clear this out. Let's clear the heavy metals out. And suddenly she sent me a message the other day. I feel like I've never felt before. Like, this is amazing. You know, so, and it's not me doing this. It's me tuning in and listening to what the earth is saying, and what people's bodies are saying. and then guiding them through the earth to that return to wholeness, which is our birthright. We all have this birthright to be whole and healed, and the earth wants to do that for us.
And the earth provides everything for us. It's just science that tells you otherwise. But anyway.
Yeah, and it's knowing where to look. And if you look at science, actual science is an amazing thing.
Oh yeah.
David Wolf has the phrase scientism, and I really like that. That the science that is in the world now is scientism. It's this myopic. Yeah, exactly. Instead of it actually being, science is the exploration. It's the questioning of what is, why it works, how it works. And that questioning is an amazing thing because it leads you to revelations and understanding. But what we always have to do is question continually and not go, I've got an answer, I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, well, with not saying the words, because we've already been struck on YouTube a couple of times, but obviously the past 3 years, Mr. Science himself, the science is set. Trust the science and take this, otherwise we're all doomed. But it's all synthetic, dangerous, toxic stuff.
And I got banned on Facebook when it all started for sharing a peer-reviewed scientific journal that said that vitamin D boosted the immune system to support the body against flus.
And but that's something that everybody's known forever. But as soon as you start saying it in the past few years, it's misinformation.
But this is the very interesting thing that we need to look at. Is one of the biggest causes of illness in our bodies is, other than stress, is a deficiency in things like vitamin D. These core nutrients that we are deficient in because we're not getting enough sunlight, because we're layering sun cream on. We're doing these things, and actually, vitamin D is essential for 900 functions in the body.
Interesting.
900 things. That's huge. So when all this started, where were the people who were concerned about our health saying optimize your vitamin D, because that is going to support you more than anything else? Get out, get fresh air, get sunlight, eat more vegetables. None of that was there. No,
it was more stay indoors.
Yeah, which is going to make you sicker. Stay indoors and stare at a screen that is filled with fear, which we've been shown that fear is one of the main things that lowers our immune system. Our mental state is so linked to the health of our body. So, the happier we are, the more positive, the more in a space of joy and abundance we are, the more healthy we're going to be physically. And that's why, I always go back to, it's like, these things are intrinsically linked. We are more than our physical body. So we have to look at this deeper energetic thing. We have to find joy in our lives. We have to kind of look at what we're putting in our bodies physically, but what we're putting in our bodies energetically, mentally, emotionally.
It all comes back to like what you said at the beginning. Everything is vibration. Everything is, and if you can go heart-centered and just it's all about love at the end of the day. That's what I always say. At the end of the day, if you think there's two sides, and there's fear and there's love. Just choose love, and that's the way forward.
And I think is exactly that. And the analogy of the hand, I always think is such a beautiful one. With this hand, can I give you anything?
Well, if you want me,
because it's right. Yeah, exactly. But with this hand, can I receive anything? No. But you open it, and this is fear. We lock down, we shut down our body, we go into this. But with an open hand of love, of relaxedness within our being, I can give and I can receive. So
absolutely,
I think that's such a beautiful thing. But then it's also, sometimes these things blocking us from that state is what we're putting into our body. Because if we're filling our bodies with sugar and processed food and these neurotoxins, then they stop us from actually being able to think properly, to think clearly, to connect with our heart. So I think this is one of the primary things. People are riddled with heavy metals, they're riddled with parasites, they're riddled with bad bacteria.
Definitely.
And what goes on in your physical being is also a representation of the outer. So, you've got parasites in your system. Well, there's parasites in your environment externally, energetically. So we need to address these things. We need to start cleansing from these core things Because
Yeah.
when you physically detoxify your body, when you physically clear out the parasites, clear out the bad bacteria, you open yourself up to the spiritual greatness that you are, to being able to hear the earth, to being
Yeah.
able to hear the birds, to being able to see with greater clarity, because the blinkers have gone.
Speaking of parasites then again, so this is something I came across last year, because again, maybe even though I was on an awakening journey for maybe 10 years previous, the parasite thing never really came into my sort of consciousness until last year when I was doing the self-healing. And then it became apparent that, the parasites are probably what's actually craving my kind of food intake. But then I remember as a former pub landlord and dealing with individuals that struggled with alcohol, that it could be the parasites that's actually causing you to want to drink. Not you necessarily, but you are being controlled by those parasites. They get into your head.
Yeah, they do. The very interesting thing is, I don't know if you remember the film Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes, yes.
And there's the man eating
Feed me.
plant, and he goes, "Feed me, Seymour, feed me now."
That's right.
And
Yeah.
this is what the parasites do in our body. They're constantly sending these signals from the brain, which is the gut, which is the second
Go.
brain,
Yeah.
to our brain, saying,
Yeah.
"Feed me, feed me, feed me." And they
Yeah.
feed on sugar. They
Yes.
feed on not only sugar, but this is also very interesting. They feed on heavy metal.
Ah, okay.
So you cannot get rid of parasites unless you get rid of the heavy metal, because they're always going to come back to feed on that. So you can, same with candida, they feed on heavy metal. So we are, as amalgam fillings, heavy metal. They're
Yeah.
spraying heavy metals in our environment. There's heavy metal, deodorant, aluminium, foil, aluminium. These are heavy metals which are causing poisoning to our brain, which
Yeah.
are stopping us thinking clearly, but they're also feeding the parasites. So we do, alcohol turns into sugar. That's what it is. It's a sugar.
Mhm.
So it feeds bad bacteria as well as parasites. So it's not just the parasites, it's the bacterial load in your gut as well.
Interesting.
So this is something I work with people a lot on, is clearing out, doing this detox. I've got a great, on my website, a great 30-day detox program, which goes through all of this. It gives you 4 weeks of recipes. It gives you 4 one-hour webinars going into the different aspects of cleansing and detoxifying, 30 different yoga postures, one for each day. It's a brilliant,
Super.
Yeah.
So how often would an individual detox in a year then, do you think?
So once to twice a year, I think, is a good
Right.
a good way to do it. And in a way, detoxing every day is our body's doing that anyway. We detox naturally, but what we need to do is support that, because now there is an extra load on us because of the environmental and food toxins. But
Yeah.
every day, if you're taking the mushrooms, they're supporting you to detox. Every day I have greens, so they're gently detoxing. It's like the All You Need, which I created. This is a superfood mix, which has literally got everything in it that you need. You have that every day, and you're gently detoxifying. So it's not then a big thing. It's good to do the big process once or twice a year, but we can do these gentle little ones every day, just supporting that natural process in the body.
And with that, so how does that supplement work? Do you put that in a drink or?
Yeah, so it's a powder. It's like a smoothie mix, but you can put it into water. You can put it into plant milk. You can put it in a smoothie. We've got on the All You Need website hundreds of recipes now, and on our Instagram and YouTube and everything, of ways you can use it, because it's so versatile. But the simplest way is put it in water, shake it, and drink it, and it tastes really nice.
Oh, that's good. Well, we'll make sure we put all the links in our description as well, and I believe we're going to be able to link up a little bit with you. So if anybody, we're going to say coupon Drake, if someone mentions Drake in the coupon area, then they'll
get a discount.
We'll get a discount. So we appreciate that, Juliette, and we'll get that stuff on our website as well. So, but I'm gonna be getting some as soon as I can, really, because I know it's my biggest tackle still. It's my gut.
Yeah, it's for me, the two things that I do every day I take the All You Need, and I have my mushroom tincture actually, and I also have my Awaken, which is like a coffee alternative because I haven't had
Oh,
caffeine
right.
in 17 years.
That's fantastic. I only have one brew a day generally. I very rarely,
Yeah.
you know, I'm pretty good like that, and I cut out alcohol completely a year and a half ago as well. I don't touch it at all. But I do like the coffee in the morning, so something like that, because I'm not really wanting the caffeine really.
Well,
So
this is brilliant because it's medicinal mushrooms and adaptogenic herbs, so it supports the body to really cleanse and heal. It's a great alternative to coffee.
fantastic. That sounds amazing. So you've got a range, I presume, of other supplements on
I
your
do,
menu?
yeah. So I've created a whole range of tinctures. This one is one of my latest. It's called Connect. It's for brain support. My oldest is doing his A levels, so he was like, "I need something to help my brain." Um, so he found something in America. I was like, "You don't need that. I've got that already. I've got that.
Yeah.
Take this and the mushrooms, and you're fine." And he takes it every day with his rosemary essential oil to smell whilst he's
Oh,
doing
amazing.
his A levels. Bless him.
That
He's
sounds
studying
great.
law, economics, and psychology, so he's got some hefty
Wow.
ones.
He has got a heavy A-level situation going on.
But he's really found it helps. He has the All You Need every day, and it's amazing that he's doing these things to help himself to be strong mentally and strong physically as well. So there's a new one as well called Men's Strength, which is to help men with their prostate, but also with their general physical strength, their libido. So there's lots of amazing different products on
I
there,
don't
all made
need
with a
that,
lot of love.
Juliet. I'm all right. Actually, I'll be ordering some in a minute.
Well, the thing is, as men get older, they need to look at their prostate. They need to, they say after 40, every man should be really supporting his prostate. And supporting just that life-giving energy. There's a mix I made called Loving Mix, which is designed for men and women to increase libido, but also it's more about stepping into that blissful state, balancing the hormones for men and women, and giving us that energy that does decline with age. We do lose some of that vital youth life force, and there are herbs out there that can support us to bring it into our body so that we're, to keep us young, really.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Have you got any more you can show us? Anything else there that you can?
Oh, well, this one is lovely. So this is called Euphoria.
Oh,
And
right.
this is an ecstatic herbal elixir. So you want to go out and party, you don't want to drink or take drugs or anything like that, then you get some of the Euphoria, and it's made with blue lotus and mugwort and mushrooms.
Wow.
And it gives you that blissful feeling. It's lovely. I created this for my birthday a few years ago. I wanted to have a dance thing, and we had a cacao ceremony, and we had the Euphoria, and we were all up dancing till 3 a.m, having an amazing time.
Wonderful.
And for me, I love plants. I love what they can do. I love being able to tap into different things and go, oh, let's try this plant. How's this gonna work on the body? And tuning in and feeling how things can bring us into that harmony and that balance without having to turn to, I partied when I was younger. I went out clubbing, I took drugs, I enjoyed that euphoric state. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to put chemicals into my body. My body is my temple, so I want to honor it. And so, but I still want to enjoy myself.
Of course.
And feel energized and blissful and tap into that energy that is all around. And that's why I love creating this alchemy with products.
I think it's amazing. I'm dead excited by it all. I might have to do a subscription service with you. It sounds amazing what you've got going on there.
Thank you.
I've realised as well. I've noticed on your Facebook recently you're doing something called
Sacred sexuality. Yeah.
Sexuality, yeah. Okay.
About a few years ago, my youngest child is 5 now. And when I got pregnant with him, my libido just went. I was really sick for 20 weeks in the pregnancy. And, being a bit older, I was 39. Was I 30? 39 when I had him. And after I had him, I just had no sex drive. And it wasn't me. And after a while, it started to wind me up, because it was like, this isn't who I am. I want that vitality back in my being. What's going on? And so I started to explore a lot more. I'd been into Tantra before, but I started to get back into it and explore the circulation of energy in my system, and not for someone else, but for my own feeling.
Yeah.
And so I started to run wild women retreats, where it was working with different tools and techniques to tap us back into that feeling of aliveness.
Yeah.
And it was all based on the journey I was going on. As I said, that's kind of what I do. So
Yeah.
I've been doing this now for a good few years, and it's beautiful to see women waking up, because so many of us, as I mentioned before, have this suppression of our sexual energy through societal conditioning.
Yeah.
And when you can tap into it and you can use that for just bringing it into your everyday life, that magnetism, because that ultimately that's what it is. It's a magnetism. It's an attraction of bringing in things to you. It's not just about men or women. It's about life, bringing life to you. And when you live in that state of turned on joy, that's what you bring into your life. Turned on joy, and who doesn't want that?
Yeah. It's the law of attraction as well. It's that energy, isn't it? As you say, magnetism.
Exactly. And what I started to realize from my work is that so many women aren't experiencing orgasm. So many women are not satisfied in their life, and they don't know how to get to that point. Maybe it's through stress, it's through hormones, Also, as a thing I'm discovering now is, as I enter the kind of perimenopause and my whole being shifts into a different phase, it's working with that energy and going, okay, this is throwing a different dynamic in. Like, how can I tap into this energy of wisdom, of the kind of crone energy coming in, as opposed to that kind of young, vital mother, maiden energy, and bring that wisdom into play and joyfulness, instead of it being I'm getting old.
Yes. And embracing the new stage of life.
Exactly. And so many women, this isn't talked about, this change. It's not being talked about enough. The only way it's talked about, it seems, in a lot of things is HRT. Well, you just go on that. And that to me is not, it's not an option for me. I'm not going there. But there are beautiful herbs you can work with, and plants. But for me, ultimately, it comes down to, if we can empower ourselves with our sexual energy, if we can tap into this feeling of joy, then we can really transform our whole being. And it's not just about the getting off bit. It's about the journey. It's about that process of waking up our feeling. And ultimately, our base chakra is our sexual center, but it's also our connection to society. It's where we feel we fit in. So if we don't feel we're rooted, if we're not rooted in the earth, then we're going to struggle to really activate that sexual energy in our being.
Yeah. And HRT itself, if it's not sort of done correctly, can cause problems as well, though, can't it? So, if like saying that the earth provides everything, if there's knowledge on what is better to take than a chemical, then that's the way forward.
The thing with the natural way is, sometimes it takes a bit more work, and it takes a bit more investment, as opposed to a doctor just handing you a prescription and then you just stick something into your body and that's that. The natural path is self-inquiry, it's exploration, it's ownership, it's understanding that the body is asking you something, and that you need to listen. And I think it all comes back to this. If you can tune into your body every day and say, what do you need? What do you need? How can I support you?
Yeah. Again, mastery. It is mastery.
It is. And it's, what I kind of view myself as I'm a guide. I can guide people to the tools. I can guide them into their body, into the earth, so that they can then start to hear their own voice, so that they can then make their own decisions.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing what you're doing.
Thank
and
you.
It will change so many lives. And you've obviously changed many people's lives anyway. But this, I think as well, the way the world's going, especially over the past few years, and people become more disillusioned with the way that the health services are run, and the chemicals that they're putting into the bodies. This is something that people are this knowledge is going to be much more important now than ever before, I think, because we've been so used to this way of living. And what this past few years has done, again, in a positive sense, is explore the alternative.
Yeah.
and a better alternative.
Yeah. It's, we're awakening to our history. We're awakening to our roots, really, to the truth that is within us,
Yeah.
that we've moved away from. We're awakening to that kind of shamanic tribal living, where we had the answers and we listened to the birds and we listened to the signs that were being presented, and we
Yeah.
saw the plants that were being presented, and we had this synergy of how we worked. And that's what's returning, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it seems that way. I think more communities are growing, it seems. People are looking for that alternative kind of way of living. They don't want to be in the rat race anymore. They
No,
don't want to be controlled. They want to just live and enjoy life. And it's going back to the earth is probably the only way, really. Source and earth and love is, people, they mock the hippie kind of lifestyle, if you like. But for me, there's nothing purer than that.
no, exactly. I think with the hippie lifestyle, that the thing that, is so important though within it is, and I think it's coming in more now than it was in the past, is the groundedness of it. So many people in the kind of hippie communities are ungrounded, or have been, and just floaty and don't manifest and actualize, and it's all just too kind of laid back and floaty. And there has to
Yes.
be that drive and that passion and that doing action to move things on, but that only comes from being truly grounded and anchored, and taking personal responsibility as well, and not just being like, we have to take personal responsibility for ourselves and also for the planet.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And again, if individuals are becoming disillusioned with a way society is and the way we're governed and controlled, then personal responsibility becomes integral to that. Otherwise, you're just relying on systems that are damaging you. So it is important. Again, if anything that's been happening these past few years is good and positive, and there's been a number of positive things, let's be honest, through this, it
Definitely.
is that.
There's always light, with every shadow, with every darkness, there is always the
Yes.
light that comes
We
through.
are that light.
Yeah, exactly. And the more we realize that, the more we give everyone else that permission to be that light too.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Well, you're doing amazing things,
Thank
Juliette, and it's been fabulous to talk to you again. I'm so happy that you were able to join us, and I hope that we can do this again sometime.
That'd be lovely.
And we'll
It
link
feels
up.
like it's the beginning of a conversation, and there's, it's the deepening of then going into the plants and the earth and the
This is what
mushrooms and all of
I would
that.
like to go more into it if that's all right. If we can set up another date sometime, that'd be marvelous to talk more.
I'd love that.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, Juliette.
Thank you.
I'll make sure everything is in the description below. And guys, please subscribe to Drake Michigan and get in touch with Juliette and just mention Drake if you're buying anything, and she'll make sure you've got a bit of discount as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you.